He pours the wine I invented, then tips in something meant to kill me. The glass clinks softly as he hands it to me, his smile carved too cleanly across his face. We're standing in the middle of our kitchen, stainless steel countertops polished like scalpels, overhead bulbs reflecting off chilled glass. He raises his own flute and gestures toward me. "To the woman who changed the industry," he says, "and changed my life." I hold the glass near my lips, close enough to smell it. Elderflower, just like always. Slight citrus trace of jasmine, but something else too, something sharp and unfamiliar under the floral. I don't blink. I've learned not to. I smile, rotate the stem between my fingers like a scalpel in a gloved hand, and nod. He watches me closely. He's done it before, but this time I'm watching back. He leans against the counter like it's his victory, eyes scanning my face for a tell, a wince, a question. I give him nothing. He sips. I don't. Instead, I step closer and gently rest my glass on the marble beside his elbow. My fingers trace the rim as though distracted, but I feel the tension in my shoulders, the tremble he doesn't notice because I've trained my body too well. We're celebrating tonight. That's what he told me. The final transfer of licensing is complete. $7 million into the account. The wine, he said, was symbolic. I should have seen it sooner, his need to control the toast to pour, for me to insist on that vintage. But I let him do it. I wanted to see it. "You always loved this one," he says, voice low, throat tight. "Remember, when we first opened the bottle in Geneva?" I nod again. He remembers dates and places better than people. Geneva was 6 years ago. My conference, my grant. He tagged along, called it a vacation. "Of course," I say. How could I forget? My voice doesn't crack. My fingers no longer tremble. His eyes flick to the glass mine, untouched. I can almost hear him thinking, too fast, too obvious. He shifts the subject. So he says, "Now that it's all done, what next for the genius?" I tilt my head. "You tell me." He laughs. It's thin, forced. "Come on, you're the brain here. You always have a plan." I let the silence stretch. Not awkward, surgical. Outside, the rain taps against the kitchen windows in uneven rhythms. The refrigerator hums. A timer beeps in the background, something roasting in the oven. Domesticity staged like a theater set. "Do you remember when I first explained the compound to you?" I ask. "The one that stabilizes flavor at subroom temps," he nods. "Of course." "Do you remember what I said would happen if it was misused?" He blinks. What I step forward, retrieve the glass. I raise it slowly, not to drink, but to study it under the light. "You remember the ratios, don't you?" I ask. "Too much. And it doesn't stabilize. It corrodes." His lips part. For a moment he looks almost human, caught between confusion and calculation. "You think I'd do something to hurt you?" he asks, but his voice is already failing him. "I think I say that if I was wrong, you'd have finished your drink already." His eyes drop to his own glass. He hadn't. Only a sip. Maybe two. I rotate mine again gently. I tilt it, letting a few droplets of condensation roll along the base. "It smells different," I say softly. "You altered the ratio." "I didn't. You always used to say I cut him off, that I was too careful, that I double-checked everything." He's quiet now. "Tonight," I continue, "I only checked once." I raise the glass as if to sip. His jaw clenches. I pause. And then I smile, not at him, but at the drink. And I place it back down. Slowly. Precisely. I step past him and into the hall. The light follows me. I don't look back. I already know what I'll see. You don't lose the truth when you refuse to swallow the lie. I didn't drink it, but I let him watch me pretend to. 3 months before he tried to kill me, he told me not to use a lawyer. "You'll just end up giving away a cut," he said, tapping a pen against the counter while I reviewed the licensing documents. "You already know what you're doing. You wrote the formula. I did. Every line, every test result, every compound sequence, it was mine. My idea. My research. My success. But the contract in front of me wasn't chemistry. It was leverage. And Graham had always been better at that part. "I just want someone to check the asset clause," I told him, carefully keeping my voice neutral. "It's not about the percentage. It's about protection." He laughed. Kate, you're licensing a stabilized aromatic suspension, not launching a missile. What are you protecting it from? Your own brilliance." He leaned in then and kissed the top of my head like he used to when I pulled all-nighters in the lab, the kind of kiss that made people watching think, supportive husband. But I felt the cold in it this time. I didn't argue. I nodded, smiled, and when he left to take a phone call, I printed a second copy of the contract. The version I showed him was signed. The version I sent in wasn't. That night, he uncorked a bottle of elderflower wine and handed me a glass. Said we should celebrate finally being rich. Said it like I hadn't been working for 12 years straight to get here. I drank that night. Carelessly. I wanted to believe it. To believe him. It would be the last time I ever let him pour for me without watching. The next morning, the deal closed. Wire confirmed $7 million. He posted a photo of us on his private socials, both of us holding glasses captioned, "To Brilliance and Partnership." But I remember staring at that image and thinking how strange my own smile looked, like it belonged to someone else. Later that week, he insisted we book a weekend trip. To unplug, he said. I canceled it. That was the first time I noticed the pattern, how he was always planning my time, my sleep, my rest. He'd call it care, but it was never random. It always came after I made a decision without him. He'd been helping me with logistics for years, admin emails, account setup, tech updates. That was the arrangement. I ran the lab, he ran the noise. But now the noise was louder. He started making offhand comments about how lucky we were, about how we should think about long-term plans in case things change. And he kept pushing that same bottle of elderflower wine. When I hesitated, he'd say, "Come on, you love this one," as if that erased the pressure. He always made me explain my work twice, as if the truth needed permission. I said yes to almost everything in those days. I smiled. I let him plan. I went through motions. But I kept the unsigned contract in a sealed envelope inside a fireproof box at the back of my lab's personal safe, labeled under a project code name only I used. He never knew it existed. One evening, he brought me a wine spritzer while I was in the bath. He didn't drink with me, said he had a stomach thing. I sipped once, then switched it with the water glass on the edge. He never noticed. The next day, I ordered my own fingerprint-secured thermos. Double-walled, digital temp lock, clinical-grade stainless, the kind used in toxicology transport. I stopped drinking from anything I didn't pour. He asked me once, "Are you on edge? You seem twitchy." I smiled. Just tired. That was the thing with Graham. He didn't like tired. Tired meant I wasn't pleasant, compliant, radiant. Tired meant I wasn't worth parading. So he tried harder. He offered back rubs, coffee in bed, supplements to help. He was grooming my exhaustion into helplessness, framing it as devotion. And still, I let him. Not because I trusted him, but because I needed to know how far he would go. He kissed my forehead every night like a man who knew what he was erasing, and I documented everything. Dates, glass types, temperatures, body reactions. No one knew. Not yet. He kissed my forehead every night like a man who knew what he was erasing. He toasted my genius with champagne I bought. I kept the receipt and the real contract. It started with headaches I couldn't explain, not the pulsing kind behind the eyes from screen time or sleep loss. These were sharp like nerves being pinched from inside. They would vanish just as quickly as they arrived, sometimes replaced by tremors in my fingers or a strange metallic taste on my tongue. "You need to stop burning out," Graham said one night while I sat, curled on the couch, barely able to keep my eyes open. "I'm not burning out," I muttered. "I sleep 8 hours now. You make me." He smiled like that was a compliment. "Maybe you just need a break from caffeine." He started making me smoothies, herbal teas, brain-boosting capsules from boutique brands I never bought. He labeled everything meticulously, kept a log on his phone, called it wellness tracking. I told him I appreciated it. I even hugged him for it. And then I dumped the pills down the sink when he wasn't looking. Something wasn't right, and I knew it before I had language for it. My brain felt like someone had applied static. I'd miss words mid-sentence, forget why I walked into a room. I scheduled a full blood panel. It came back clear. He acted relieved. "Just stress," he said. "I mean, you've carried this thing on your back for years. Maybe now that the money's in your body is letting go." The worst part, that explanation almost worked. But then something happened on a flight to San Diego that broke the narrative. Mid-air, 30 minutes before landing, I stood up to use the restroom and collapsed. Full blackout. No warning. When I woke up, there was an oxygen mask on my face, a flight attendant kneeling beside me, and Graham holding my hand like he'd just saved my life. "Low blood sugar," he told the paramedic on the tarmac. "She works too hard." He made it sound noble. Later in the hotel room, he drew a bath for me, told me to rest. He opened a bottle of wine, sparkling elderflower again. "A comfort tradition," he said. I stared at the glass and wondered why this bottle always drink it. He urged gently, "You'll feel better." I took the glass, I held it, and when he stepped away to take a call, I poured it down the drain and replaced it with water. He didn't notice. He never did. That was the moment I stopped doubting myself. From then on, I began logging everything. I wore a discreet skin temp monitor on my wrist and added a timed symptom journal on my encrypted notes app. I tracked when I drank, what I ate, what he prepared, what I didn't. I started to see the pattern emerge in heat maps and heart rate spikes. Every 3 days, symptoms peaked always after consuming something he gave me, so I stopped consuming. And just like that, I began to recover. Clarity returned like someone turning the dimmer switch back up in my skull. I could focus. I could read scientific abstracts again without rereading paragraphs. I even slept without waking in a sweat. I didn't tell anyone. Not yet. But I did upgrade my methods. I bought an at-home testing kit used by law enforcement for early field toxin detection. Not admissible in court, but enough for preliminary insight. I tested samples of leftover tea, of smoothie residue, of saliva left on shared glasses. One result came back inconclusive, with a flag heavy metal compound detected inconsistent with common food agents. That was enough for me. He brought me elderflower wine again the next evening. I let him pour it. I even drank half a sip, then forgot it on the counter while I went to check email. He asked if I was feeling better. "Much," I said. "Thanks for taking care of me." He smiled and reached for his own glass. And for a second, just a flicker, I saw hesitation in the way his hand hovered before touching it. I used to think love was service. Now I timed how long his hands lingered near my glass. A week later, he handed me a smoothie. I took it with both hands, kissed his cheek, and dumped it into the thermos when he left the room. I froze that sample. Just in case. He bought us tickets to a wellness retreat in Utah. "Digital detox," he said. I declined. He pouted. "You're never spontaneous anymore." "You like plans," I replied. "You're the planner, remember?" He softened, said something about wanting to reconnect, then added, "It's not like you need to be glued to your email anymore. You're done inventing." That was the closest he came to revealing it, that he thought I was finished, that I had outlived my utility. But he forgot one thing. I wasn't done. I was just getting started again. I used to think love was service. Now I timed how long his hands lingered near my glass. I used to think love was service. Now I timed how long his hands lingered near my glass. He told everyone I was healing. I was. Just not in the way he wanted. The boardroom smelled like citrus and fresh ink. 12 chairs, 2 cameras, and 3 executives I barely remembered from early Zoom calls. Graham stood beside me in a tailored navy jacket, hands tucked behind his back like a best man waiting for a cue. Nadine Tran from HR hovered near the whiteboard, her phone face down on the table beside her water bottle. She smiled like someone paid to stay neutral. "We just want to say congratulations again," the licensing director said, raising a small glass. "This deal wouldn't have existed without your compound. Truly revolutionary." I smiled, nodded, said thank you. Graham stepped forward just enough to be visible in the camera's left frame and added, "Kate spent years in a lab to get this right. Nights, weekends, everything. I barely saw her sometimes." They all laughed politely. The director chuckled. "And now she's rich. Now we're rich," Graham corrected with a grin that showed too many teeth. I tilted my head. I was used to that. the casual inclusion, the rephrasing. He didn't mean harm, at least that's what I used to tell myself. He hadn't signed a line on the patent, hadn't synthesized a molecule. But the way he stood near the screen during the product revealed anyone watching would think he held the pipette. One of the execs gestured toward the touchscreen at the end of the table. "Could you walk us through your early version, the one before stabilization?" I stepped forward. Graham leaned in, about to say something. I raised a hand lightly, not to stop him, just to move. He sat back. I opened the schematic, walked them through the bonding sequence, the pH balance issue at 11 degrees Celsius, the microburst correction at the solvation layer. They nodded, impressed, curious. Graham waited until the end to chime in again. "She's explaining that like she didn't have to repeat it 4 times to me when we started," he said with a wink. I forced a laugh. They laughed too. But no one heard the edge in that joke the way I did. He rewrote my clarity as confusion right in front of me. Nadine looked up for a second, eyebrows raised, not quite surprise, not quite discomfort. She reached for her phone but didn't check it, just moved it closer to her. They moved on to lunch logistics, catering, PR follow-ups. I tuned out and stared at the glass wall behind the whiteboard. My reflection was muted in the panel, ghost-like, half obscured by light. Graham had a way of filling rooms without trying. His voice reached corners I hadn't yet spoken into. He remembered names, birthdays, executive quirks. He was a professional ornament, harmless, until fixed to something valuable. After the meeting, while the others filed out, Nadine stayed behind to stack documents. Graham leaned toward me and whispered, "You handled that great. You really sound like the expert." "I am the expert," I said. He smiled. "Of course." Then he walked over to the food table and picked up 2 glasses, sparkling elderflower again. The bottle chilled in a metal bucket on a marble cart. "Toast," he said. "Here," I asked. "Why not? It's our moment." He handed me one and raised his own. "To us." I clinked my glass with his but didn't drink. I pretended to sip, closed my eyes for effect. When I opened them, Nadine was looking at us. Then she looked at her phone. "Oops," she said suddenly, "I think I left this recording." She flipped it over, screen still lit. I used voice memo to take minutes but forgot to pause it. Graham's expression didn't shift, but his grip on the glass tightened just barely. "Accidental journalist," I said lightly. She smiled, shrugged, and tapped the stop button. We all stood there a second longer than we needed to. He offered to drive us home. Said he'd left the wine in the back seat chilling for dinner. Said I could nap on the way. I declined. "I'll take a car," I told him. "I have a call to make on the way." "You sure?" he said. I nodded. "Okay," he said, then kissed my cheek too fast. As I walked toward the exit, I heard his voice behind me talking to one of the interns. The tone was light, effortless. The same tone he used when we first met, when he introduced himself as a finance guy who likes helping the real smart ones win. I slipped my phone from my pocket and opened a private voice memo. "Boardroom toast," I whispered. "No drink consumed." Phone recorded 15 minutes. Witness present. I locked the file and slipped it back into my coat. The glass of elderflower was still in my hand. I dumped it into a planter near the curb. He rewrote my clarity as confusion right in front of me. He smiled for the cameras. I smiled for Nadine's phone lens instead. He brought the elderflower again, this time in crystal flutes. "Just 1 glass," he said. "You deserve it. It's our second closeout. Singapore picked up full rights. 7 figures again." I nodded, watching the bubbles rise. The licensing firm had staged a small congratulations gathering in their shared event space. Just enough people to feel visible: project managers, junior execs, HR, and Nadine Tran seated near the refreshments table tapping something into her tablet. I was supposed to be glowing. I felt like glassware in a moving truck, fine on the outside, but waiting for the wrong turn. Graham stood close, one arm hovering behind me as if to signal possession without ever making contact. I knew the posture. I used to mistake it for protection. He raised his glass. "To the architect of molecular balance," laughter, polite applause. Even Nadine smiled. I raised my glass and tilted it toward my lips. He watched. I pretended to sip. The room spun just a little, not from alcohol, but from calculation. I waited exactly 3 minutes, just long enough for a conversation with one of the junior licensing agents about market expansion and shelf stability. Then I touched my temple. "Sorry," I said. "Just need to sit for a second." I moved to the side seating area, a polished white leather chair near the window. Sat slowly, breathing deeply. Eyes half closed. I knew Nadine was watching. I knew her phone was back on the table, face-down screen quietly lit from a timer she'd forgotten to end earlier. Graham knelt beside me. "You okay? Just dizzy," I whispered. He placed a hand on my wrist, checking for something, pulse or effect. I kept my eyes soft. "You should have eaten," he said. "You skipped breakfast again, didn't you?" He looked up at the HR coordinator, still lingering nearby. "She does this sometimes, just burns too hot." Nadine stood. "Do you want water, electrolytes? I'll be okay," I said faintly. "Just need 5. Graham helped me to the back room, dimly lit and quiet. He sat beside me, rubbing my palm. "Should I get the car?" "Not yet," I said. "Let's just sit." He nodded. The performance ended 15 minutes later. I stood up under my own power and walked out with my coat draped across my shoulders. Outside, I handed my untouched wine glass to the doorman and asked for it to be recycled. As Graham spoke to someone near the valet about dinner reservations, I walked quietly back into the event room. Nadine was closing down the setup, organizing printed name tags and leftover branded folders. "You okay?" she asked softly. I nodded. "I think I've just been overdoing it." She smiled. "He told me you're bad about meals." I laughed. "He tells everyone that." She paused. Then said my phone was recording again today. I caught some of the toast and a few other things. "I'll send you the clip if you want." I looked at her, not directly, just a side glance. "That's sweet of you." "I like keeping records," she added, quiet. "Me too." I walked out before she could ask anything else. At home, he poured another glass for me. "You sure you're okay? I'll sip later," I said. "Just need a shower." He nodded, but his eyes followed the glass as I left it on the kitchen counter. I went upstairs, closed the door, and pulled out my private phone. I played the voice memo from earlier, the tone of his voice when he said, "She does this sometimes. She does this. Not this is new. Not this has been happening lately." He said it like routine, like ownership. I clipped the audio at that line. I saved it to my secure cloud drive. I marked it public tone, hostile framing. Then I opened the other folder and documented the event. Entry logged, event collapse performance. Boardroom 111, 4 a.m. participants. Graham present, initiated narrative. Nadine Tran present. Witnessed physical symptoms, offered aid. Audio capture, HR phone screen. Active memo, running outcome. Controlled exit, minimal suspicion, no direct confrontation. Status successful, escalation phase. Prepare legal consult. I scrolled up to reread the earlier entries. Lab notes, beverage batch records. Resting heart rate recovery curves. He thought I was coming apart, but I was assembling the final version. That time I didn't fall by accident. It took 6 rings for Elliot Briggs to pick up. He was always slow to answer if it wasn't about court dates or money, and I wasn't paying him for this call, not yet. "Briggs," he said, his voice thick with coffee and irritation. "It's Kate Melrose. I need to activate the asset clause." Silence. Then Jesus. "You actually didn't sign it. Told you I wouldn't." "Kate, I assumed that was metaphorical. That document is 3 months old. I need a timestamp and a freeze filing by tomorrow. And a quiet clerk." "Shit," he muttered. "Okay, what happened? I'm being poisoned." Another pause. Longer this time. He didn't ask if I was sure. That's why I picked him. "Come in," he said. "Bring whatever you have." Briggs' office smelled like burnt toner and bad insulation. The kind of place where old secrets survived longer than marriages. I handed him the envelope, unbroken seal, my original handwriting across the back. Inside was the licensing contract with the final transfer clause unfilled. The buyer had signed. I had not. He scanned it once. Then twice. "You really kept this out," he said. After they wired 7 million, I had a feeling. Your husband knows. No. He sat back. This is the entire asset chain. Without your signature, they've licensed Vapor. You still own the IP. I want a freeze. I can file that by noon. You understand what that means for the buyer, right? They'll panic. They should. He tapped the paper with the back of his pen. And what's your proof he's trying to kill you? I opened my bag and pulled out a secondary file. Hair samples, timestamps, diet logs, biometric charts, screenshots of voice memos, transcripts, QR code links to encrypted folders. I'm working on lab confirmation, I said. Preliminary markers suggest thallium. I'm sending it to a third-party chemtoxicologist, Dr. Hema Chowdhury. You'll get the report when I do. He exhaled. Jesus, Kate, don't make me explain the science twice. He smiled grimly. I won't. He stood and walked the document to the scanner. This clause, he said, pointing to the signature line on the back page, is the lock. No ink, no asset transfer. Ref code, I asked. DPL 1973. Already writing it into the notice. I leaned against the wall and waited as he uploaded it to a secured state filing portal. He read the digital checklist aloud, voice low, then muttered the freeze terms into the mic like a confession. As he worked, I pulled out my phone and logged a new entry. Event legal freeze initiated. Asset transfer DPL 1973. Custodian Elliot Briggs. Status lock pending clerk stamp verbal chain. You still own the IP. Timestamp 11:04 a.m. Then I sat in silence as the last piece fell into place. Graham thought I had nothing left, thought the sale meant surrender. But I'd written a different ending and kept it folded in a drawer behind fake tax forms and empty lab flasks. He thought I sold my future. He didn't know I kept the proof of it. Back at home that evening, he cooked pasta, from scratch. The wine was already poured when I walked in. Elderflower always. I walked past the counter and into the bathroom, washed my hands, took a breath. I ran a finger down my throat and felt the steadiness return. Dinner was lovely. I let him serve it all. He poured himself a second glass toasted to our freedom and took a long sip. I held mine, watched the condensation trail down the stem. He leaned in. You look better this week, he said. I feel better. Maybe the supplements are helping. Maybe, I said. I waited until he turned to check the oven timer before I whispered into my phone, patient number 001, no intake recorded. Subject, drank own dose. Symptom tracking ongoing. I locked the memo. 2 hours later, while he slept, I checked the email from Chowdhury. Preliminary toxicology pending. Initial sample registered abnormal metal content. Definitive compound analysis coming in 72 hours. Verified chain of custody. Legal watermark included. I forwarded the metadata to Briggs. Marked it Phase 2, Chemical Confirmation, linked to DPL 1973 timeline. I stared at the wine glass on the table. I snapped a photo of the lipstick mark on the rim, barely there like a ghost. I uploaded it into the archive. He thought I sold my future. He didn't know I kept the proof of it. The truth was always mine. Now the proof is too. I started wearing gloves in the kitchen. Not thick ones, just enough to make sure I left no prints, no sweat residue. Graham joked once that I looked like a surgeon playing house. Don't want to get dish hands, I said. I'd begun preparing everything in duplicate: 2 mugs, 2 glasses, 2 plates, one for performance, one for evidence. I kept his gifts. Took pictures of every tincture bottle, every supplement, logged batch numbers, scraped residue into sterile swabs and froze them in coated vials. The house became a lab, and he still thought I was healing. You've been sleeping more, he noted one morning as I came downstairs with damp hair. Must be that last round of magnesium. I think it's finally kicking in, I said, smiling. He handed me tea, chamomile and rose. I set it beside the toaster and waited for him to leave the room before pouring it into thermos hash 4. That night, I uploaded the sample logs into a new secure archive labeled Point of View LV7 Protocol. I included the clipped audio from Nadine's phone, the boardroom collapse footage, and 2 side-by-side screenshots from the transfer contract, one with his initials in the margins, one with my signature missing. I tagged it Controlled Burn Phase 2. 3 days later, I mailed the biological samples. I used a decoy return address, one of my old lab shell core, and packaged them in a triple-locked box marked clinical. The destination was Dr. Hema Chowdhury's lab in Boston, a toxicologist who specialized in silent agents, metals, slow-acting neuroinhibitors, designer destabilizers. I'd sent her an email the week before, not admissible yet, but critical. Sample batch includes drink residue, nail clippings, hair strands, and filtered plasma via dermal microneedle patch. Hypothesis: low-level cumulative poisoning. Primary suspect: thallium derivative. Possible secondary organic modifier mimicking chronic fatigue. Timeline aligned with public events. Metadata embedded. She replied in less than 2 hours, "Send it, and send me your pulse log." So I did. That night, I sat on the couch with Graham, watching a documentary about serial fraud cases. He chuckled when the narrator mentioned how embezzlers hide in plain sight. "Always the guy you trust," he said. "People don't want to suspect someone who brings them coffee." I turned my head toward him slowly. "Is that why you started bringing me tea again?" He looked at me, caught off guard, then smiled. "I thought you liked it." "I do." He touched my leg. "I like taking care of you," he said. "I know." We watched the rest of the documentary in silence. After he fell asleep, I returned to my private notes and recorded a new voice log, day 89. Subject continues pattern of benevolent control, offering nourishment, routine praise. Beverage schedule remains predictable. Onset of symptom recurrence typically 2-3 hours post-consumption. No substance consumed since day 67. All side effects ceased. Body stabilized. He says he brings me things because he cares. He doesn't ask what I need. He decides. He erased me while pretending to hold me up. I'm not letting him write the ending. On the morning of the 90th day, Graham knocked on the bathroom door while I was brushing my teeth. "Package came for you," he said through the wood. I froze. "What kind?" I asked. "Small. From a lab." "Boston return label. Want me to open it?" "No," I said quickly, rinsing my mouth. "I'll get it." He was holding the box when I stepped out, taped, tight, marked, fragile. His eyes studied the corner. "Test results?" he asked. I shrugged. "Probably just routine. I ordered something for a supplement check." He smiled. "You're getting careful." "I like that. Learned it from you," I said. He handed it over. I took it upstairs. Inside the box was a small, sealed cylinder marked confirmation pending. Open only under secure conditions. No documents yet. No verdict. Just a promise someone smart was looking. Someone watching besides me. He erased me while pretending to hold me up. I mailed the evidence to someone who wouldn't kiss my forehead after killing me. The email came at 2:46 a.m. Subject: confirmation attached. From Hema Chowdhury body Kate attached are the results. You were right. Chain of custody and timestamp enclosed. This wasn't stress. This wasn't in your head. H. There were 4 attachments. I opened the PDF labeled Confidential Toxicology Panel. Sample 73.4. B Client KM. It started with 2 words, positive match. Compound thallium sulfate microdosed non-industrial source. Delivery method oral symptoms consistent with recorded logs. Chain of custody. Sealed transit signed and received by Technician S. Ramirez Boston timestamp 1032 a.m. 3 days ago certifying authority Dr. Hema Chowdhury MD, PhD, number TX 430 on a negative 221. There it was. Not a suspicion, not a feeling. A signature. A timestamp. A line in black ink that said, "You were not crazy. You were poisoned." I stared at the screen, unblinking. Then I uploaded it to my encrypted drive and added a line, evidence #2 confirmed, no longer theoretical, legal breach initiated, subject unaware. I didn't sleep. At 5:13 a.m. I texted Elliot Briggs. Received lab results. Verified. "Can we meet today?" he replied. "In 3 minutes I'll be in at 7. Bring everything." By 7:32 I was sitting in his office, coffee untouched, folder open between us. Briggs read through the toxicology report, silently pen-tapping against the table like a clock counting down. "Damn," he muttered. "He actually did it. He's been doing it for months." He looked up. "You going to the police?" "Not yet. First I want to make sure every asset he touched turns to ash." He nodded. "We freeze him. Personal accounts, shared property, any transfer initiated after the original deal. I'll file this under fraud and attempt to defraud. They won't see it coming. I want the patent reversal filed tomorrow. I'll walk it in myself." That evening, Graham came home early. He was holding a small bag takeout from my favorite Vietnamese place. He set it on the counter like a peace offering. "Surprise," he said. "Bun cha and spring rolls. I thought you deserved a night off." I stared at the bag, then at him. He wasn't nervous. He didn't know. "Not yet." "You okay?" he asked. I nodded. "Just tired." He leaned in. "You've been different lately. Distant. I've had a lot on my mind." He touched my shoulder. "You can talk to me, you know." "I know." After dinner, I scraped the sauce containers into a plastic tray and sealed it. Labeled the date. Filed it in the freezer. Not because I expected anything, just in case. Then I stood in the hallway and watched him watch television. His hands were clean, his hair damp from a shower. He looked like a man who loved his wife. I whispered into my phone again. Confirmation received. Thallium identified. Trace dosage matched to symptom log. Subject remains unaware. Tone unchanged. Demeanor confident. Exposure imminent. This wasn't stress. This wasn't a dream. This was attempted murder. He went to bed at 10:17 p.m. I stayed awake watching the recording from the boardroom again. The moment he said, "She does this sometimes." The way he smiled as he handed me the glass. The way no one stopped him. I copied the toxicology file onto 2 drives. One, hidden in the lab under the false bottom drawer. The other, inside the lining of my old laptop case, stitched by hand. I sent the metadata to Hema again. "Next step begins now." She replied with a single line. "Burn it clean." This wasn't stress. This was attempted murder. And I have a timestamp with his name under it. I waited until he poured the wine. Same elderflower, same stemless glasses, same lie in liquid form. He lit a candle that flickered against the glass backsplash, his reflection stretched and broken like heat shimmer. "I thought we could celebrate," he said. "The final transfer clears tomorrow. Your name will be everywhere." I set my phone face down beside the sink, already recording. "You think it's over?" He tilted his head. "Isn't it?" I slid the chair out slowly, sat down, fingers laced together. "I got a report back today." He smiled. "Good news?" "No." He frowned slightly. "What kind of report?" "Lab results." His hand froze over the wine glass, then resumed. "Oh," he said lightly. "What for?" "Samples. Blood, hair, fluids. I wanted to rule out nutrient issues." "Still worried about your health?" he asked. "You could say that." He took a sip from his glass. I didn't. "What did it say?" he asked. It confirmed thallium sulfate. Trace dosages. Over weeks. Maybe months. He chuckled. "Kate, no. Don't." My voice cut across the room like ice cracking. "You don't get to laugh this one off." He paused. "Where did you send it?" "Third party. Chain of custody. Time-stamped. Verified." He opened his mouth, then closed it. "You think I did that," he said, eventually tone softening. "I know you did. That's insane." "It's evidence." He stepped away from the counter. Not toward me, sideways, like he needed space to deliver the next line. "Kate, you've been under a lot of pressure." "Not anymore. You've been different. Because you were trying to kill me." "I was trying to help you," his voice finally cracked. "You weren't sleeping. You were falling apart. I didn't know what else to do." I stood slowly. "So you dosed me. I needed you stable, long enough to finish the deal. You said yourself this was your legacy and you needed to be next to it when the cameras flashed." His face flushed red. "I was supporting you. Holding you up." "No. You were poisoning me and smiling while I blacked out. He paced the kitchen now, fast and erratic. You're blowing this out of proportion. There's a timestamp, Graham. There's a lab tag with your fingerprints on the packaging. That proves nothing. There's a sample with your DNA on the mixing spoon. He stopped cold. You kept samples. I kept everything. His breath came shallow now. His hands clenched at his sides. You can't prove intent. You brought me a drink after I collapsed on a plane. That was just sugar, I didn't think. Don't finish that sentence. Silence. Then what are you going to do? Already did it. He blinked. I filed a reversal, I said. Patent freeze, legal complaint, the house, the accounts, they're being audited. His voice turned desperate. You can't do that. I can. I have. I was protecting you. You were erasing me. His voice rose. Everything I did was to keep us afloat. You were spiraling. No, I said. You just hated that I didn't need you anymore. He stepped forward. I didn't flinch. You're not thinking clearly, he whispered. You're reacting. I'm documenting. I picked up the phone, tapped stop on the recording and held it up. I recorded this too. He said I was unraveling. I was documenting. His expression flickered, shock, panic, calculation, then fell into something hollow. You're going to destroy everything. No, I said. I'm taking back what's mine. An hour later he was gone. Not arrested, just gone. He walked out like he still had choices. I let him go. The truth had already moved faster than him. I forwarded the audio to Briggs. The toxicology report followed. Then the footage from the boardroom. Then the time-stamped call logs and entry logs from Hema's lab. By sunrise, the freeze had triggered. I sat at the same kitchen counter where he used to pour tea and dissolve lies into syrup. The candle was still flickering, the wine untouched. I lifted the glass and smelled it. Bitter, floral, acidic underneath. Then I poured it down the drain. He said I was unraveling. I was documenting. He dosed my wine with control. I dosed my silence with evidence. The clerk stamped the reversal notice at 9:03 a.m. Officially ref number DPL 1973 no longer belonged to anyone but me. The patent reverted. The funds froze. The licensing deal went red-flagged across 3 investor dashboards, and Graham's name so carefully threaded into every passive voice press release was gone. Briggs sat across from me, tie askew, face tight with satisfaction. You just nuked a 7-figure handshake, he said, sliding the final receipt across the desk. They'll rebuild, I said, but without him. He nodded. I signed the last page, final reversal filing, retention of intellectual property, original inventor. The signature box had space for a co-owner. I left it blank. That afternoon, Graham sent 4 texts. You're reacting. We can talk about this. The lawyers will make it worse. You're ruining your legacy out of spite. I didn't reply. He called. I declined. He emailed a single line, we should handle this privately. I forwarded it to Briggs. He wrote back, you've handled it legally. That's better. By evening, the first investor call came through someone from the Singapore deal, asking why the wire hadn't cleared. I explained calmly with the file open on my screen. Due to unauthorized manipulation and health-based coercion, I've retained full ownership. The signature on the license was invalid. The man on the other end didn't argue. He simply said, will you still be manufacturing? I might. We'd like first option if you do. I recorded that call too. Saved it under post-reversal market interest. Briggs texted smart. Start building your own brand. You own the compound. You own the press cycle. I did one better. I emailed Nadine Tran. Hi Nadine, I'd like to request a full download of the recordings you mentioned from the day of the toast and the boardroom meeting. K.M. She responded in 15 minutes. I always archive. Sending now. The audio files came in a zip folder, labeled by date, clean. In one, you could hear Graham's voice distinctly as he corrected the director. Now we're rich. In another, after I paused during a pitch, you heard him say, she gets fuzzy sometimes, but she's brilliant. It sounded supportive unless you knew what was in my bloodstream at the time. I clipped both files, stored them, then opened my press release draft. That night I published a quiet update on my old academic blog, Ownership Erasure and the Science of Retention. On the silent lines we sign and the ones we leave blank. On the way, a patent means nothing if your breath isn't steady enough to defend it. And on the value of keeping your own timestamp when someone else is trying to write your ending. I didn't name him. I didn't need to. 3 licensing blogs picked it up by morning. Then 1 science podcast. Then a quiet DM from a female biotech founder. I know exactly what you meant between the lines. He tried it with me, too. Stay ruthless, Briggs emailed. Melrose owns the name, the formula, and the fire. Final freeze filing confirmed. He attached the notice. I printed it, framed it, hung it in my lab above the sealed drawer where his wineglass used to sit. The paper trail is louder than the lie. I never saw Graham again in person. He tried to arrange a meeting through a mediator, then through his brother, then through a friend of mine from grad school. I declined each time. The last message I received from him came 2 weeks later. I hope you're proud of what you did. I didn't answer. But I was. I spent the next month dismantling everything he left behind. His name on old media kits deleted, his login to the lab inventory revoked, his credit card on my joint statement voided, his digital signature on secondary documents invalidated. Briggs called it erasure of presumed contribution. I called it correction. I went to the lab alone on a Sunday. The building was empty, quiet. I walked to the bench where I first tested the pH balance issue, the one he said I couldn't fix without his spreadsheet. I opened my notebook and rewrote the original hypothesis in ink. Then I crossed out the old line beneath it, tested with external input, and wrote a new one, proven in isolation, stabilized under pressure. I sat there for a long time, not remembering him, remembering me. The paper trail is louder than the lie. He erased my voice, so I redrafted the record without him in it. The interview was scheduled for 8:00 a.m. Pacific Time. Audio only. No camera, no makeup, no handlers, just a voice. The producer asked if I wanted the questions in advance. I said no. He seemed surprised. We usually prep the founder guests. I'm not here to sell anything, I said. I'm here to clarify what was stolen. A pause. Then, we'll go live in 3. The host opened with pleasantries. My bio, my invention, the compound, the praise. Then he said, there was some, let's say, controversy during the licensing phase. I didn't smile. There was attempted erasure, I corrected. Not controversy. He cleared his throat. Would you like to expand? Yes. And I did. I told them about the wine, about the silent symptoms, about the boardroom moment and the diagnosis and the reversal filing. I didn't name him, but I didn't protect him either. Why speak now, he asked. Because someone else will Google my name one day and deserve the full story, not just the patent. By noon, the episode had over 9,400 downloads. By 5:00 p.m., I had 6 press inquiries and 3 speaking invitations. I answered none of them. I had already said what mattered. That weekend, I walked into the Biotech Summit unannounced. No badge, no press lanyard, just a simple black dress and the confidence of a woman who outlived the lie. Nadine Tran was standing at the periphery of a workshop panel. When she saw me, she smiled and walked over. I heard the interview, she said. Twice. I almost didn't do it. I'm glad you did. I kept your files, the recordings. She nodded. I always keep records. Me too. We stood in silence a moment. Then she reached into her bag and handed me something small, a flash drive. Timeline folder, she said. Everything I didn't send you. I thought you gave me everything. Back then, she said. You weren't ready to hear how much he took credit for. I took the drive. Thank you. That evening, I got a message from one of the junior execs from the Singapore deal. We saw the podcast. The board backed you. We'd still like to work with you if you choose. I responded simply, maybe. But this time I keep all the keys. Briggs called 2 days later. They want to settle, he said. No press. No deposition. I leaned back in my chair. How much? 7 figures. Plus, permanent removal from all documentation. Already included. I didn't hesitate. Fine, but I want one clause added. What clause? If he ever says my name in a public forum, the deal voids and I reclaim the remainder. Briggs laughed. Savage. No, I said. Safe. I never saw the money hit my account. It went straight into the holding company, one I set up without Graham years before under my mother's maiden name. Ironically, he once told me, "You should set up backups, just in case someone tries to steal it." So I did. From him. A month later, I stood in a university lecture hall giving a talk to a room full of grad students. The screen behind me read, "Power is not who gets to speak, it's who gets archived." I watched their faces as I explained metadata. Consent, signatures that mean nothing without truth underneath, and what it means to own your work in a world where people smile while taking it from you. Afterward, one student approached me with wide eyes and a notebook full of scribbled lines. "Is it true you caught him with time-stamped wine samples?" "I caught him," I said. "That's the important part." She nodded. I saw it in her somewhere between fear and fire. I handed her my card. "Call me if you ever need help keeping your name on your work." He said I was unraveling. Now they're quoting me. He poured poison into my voice. I turned it into broadcast. The house was quiet. Not silent in that haunted way it once felt when I was collapsing slowly under someone else's version of care, but quiet in the way that comes only after extraction. The way a forest might feel once you remove the invasive roots. I sat at the table he used to set for 2. I'd replaced the chairs, swapped the wine glasses for ceramic mugs. There was no elderflower on the counter, no hidden sweeteners, just tea I'd made myself mint, lemon honest. Across from me sat no one. And yet the space didn't feel empty. It felt mine. There was a drawer in the lab I hadn't opened in weeks, the one with the glass vial he'd once handed me saying, "Just a little something to calm you down." I unlocked it and pulled it open. The vial was still there, sealed, untouched. It could have gone into evidence, could have been mailed to another lab, could have headlined an exposé, but it didn't need to be. The story had already been told, the record already corrected. I didn't need the poison anymore. I needed the proof that I didn't drink it. So I left it there, a relic, not a weapon. I spent the next hour shelving old notebooks, lab entries with his handwriting in the margins. I didn't rip them out. I didn't black them over. I annotated instead. False attribution. Not consulted. Rewritten for clarity. Every time I opened a page where he had inserted himself, I added a footnote in red. Voided by truth. Not to erase him. To mark the correction. That was the difference. I walked through the garden in the late afternoon sun. He used to hate when I spent time out there, said it was unproductive, said real scientists don't compost. I knelt next to the rosemary and clipped a handful for dinner. The scent rose sharp, real grounding. Everything I needed to know about poison I learned from plants, and everything I needed to know about power I learned from what survived after pruning. The mailbox still had his name on the second line. I pulled it off with the tip of a screwdriver. The metal flaked. It left a faint outline behind. I stared at it for a long time. Then I fetched a small label from my office drawer and wrote K. Melrose, sole proprietor. I pressed it over the scar of his name. It stuck. Inside, I stood in front of the mirror. I didn't look different. No new scars. No burn marks. No residue of the months spent wondering if I was imagining the drain inside my own bones. But I saw it in my eyes. The clarity. The refusal to be erased again. He wrote over me. I rewrote the record. That night, I opened my laptop and logged into the archive one last time. I labeled the folder Closed. I didn't delete it. I didn't need to. But I didn't need to keep adding either. The story was whole. The record complete. And I had lived through it. They asked me to keynote next year's industry conference. I said yes. Not for the audience. Not for the optics. but because I wanted the next woman walking into a pitch meeting, into a shared lab, into a marriage to know how much paper and silence it takes to erase someone. And how much louder a timestamp can be when you leave your name on it. He wrote over me. I rewrote the record, and this time no one else holds the pen.